Mel, can limiting beliefs be overcome for good if you still get them? I think they can. I personally think they can be overcome for good as your default setting. So remember, what we're talking about is we're talking about getting, I don't have a hat here, but we're talking about the default network in your mind. So imagine that there's like a filter on your brain that is a default setting that has a limiting belief. What we're trying to teach you to do is to identify this filter and the limiting beliefs that go on with it. I'm not good enough. I'm never going to be successful. Nobody likes me. You look at the whole world through that lens. And we want you to take it off. And we want you to reprogram a different one that has different information on it. Okay? So that your default setting becomes more positive. You will always have a default setting. Your brain needs it. Your brain needs to automate certain functions, and your brain also needs to filter information that's inbound so that your head doesn't explode. Can't let everything in, or else you would be way too overstimulated to even make it through your day. So, yes, you can overcome and get rid of limiting beliefs because you can program your default settings to be different. You can program your outlook to be more positive. You can program yourself to be the kind of person that tries instead of doubting yourself. You can program yourself, just like you saw me. We had a massive tech breakdown with thousands and thousands of people watching. And instead of having my entire attitude go negative because of my own limiting beliefs that I disappoint people, I'm able to keep it mostly together because I have reprogrammed my default settings. Now, yes, you can overcome your limiting beliefs for good by reprogramming your default settings. However, there will be things that happen to you that trigger you. It's unavoidable. You're going to lose people that you love. You're going to try new things and you're going to fail. You are going to face rejection. You are going to feel pain. You are going to have moments where you feel extremely low, and you can't avoid that. And that's going to trigger you to start to doubt yourself. But here's what's going to happen. Because you fundamentally, you work on reprogramming your default settings, you're not going to go down the rabbit hole as far as you normally would. And you also now have the skills to recognize that just because something bad has happened to me, it doesn't mean the world is bad. It doesn't mean that I am bad. You will have the game-changing ability to see that events and people and things that happen to you do not define you. And when you start to do that because your default settings in your brain have been programmed to be more positive, they've been programmed to be more courageous. They've been programmed to be more compassionate and self-loving. Your life will be very, very different. Rad from YouTube, what's the difference between limiting beliefs and the harsh reality we are living in? It's an excellent question, Rad. And the way that I'm going to answer it, I hope this makes sense. When you have a limiting belief, so that default network in your mind is programmed to think you're not enough, or the default network in your mind is programmed to think it never works out for me, or the default network in your mind is programmed to say, I'm never going to make it. What happens with a limiting belief is that you actively, because of the default network in your brain, is your brain is actively filtering in and out information that agrees with the limiting belief. And so your whole mind is set up to view the world and look for evidence that you're not enough, that things aren't working out, that you're never going to make it. So there's a big difference between the reality that you're food compromised, the reality that you're unemployed, the reality that you're living with depression, the reality that you're divorced, the reality that you dropped out of school and you want to go back and now study to become a nurse. Those are harsh or can be harsh realities. It can be liberating realities for some people, not everybody, of course, because those are very, very real and tough circumstances, okay, to be food deprived. I don't mean to say that that's a liberating circumstance. I meant it from the dropping out and going back to school. So let me be clear. Very harsh reality to be food compromised. Very harsh reality to be unemployed. Very harsh reality to live with depression. Very harsh reality to get dumped. Very harsh reality to have a diagnosis that's terrifying. Get it. I totally get it. That is very different than having the harsh reality be your brain and you've got a terrible diagnosis and all your brain is doing is saying, I'm going to die. I'm never going to survive this. My chances are ba, 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 ba. You got it? So that you're making it worse because of your default settings. I want to train you, regardless of the harsh circumstances that you're living in, that you get to choose how you view the circumstances. You get to choose how you view the future. You get to choose whether or not you see nothing but problems, nothing but excuses, nothing but reasons to be depressed and sad and to check out, or whether you can train yourself to still have hope, to still get up and try, to still get up and be positive, to still get up and look for opportunities to make your life just a little bit better. That's the difference between harsh realities and your limiting beliefs. Harsh realities are temporary. You can change them. Limiting beliefs will keep you stuck in a permanent mental state because you are continuing to look for evidence to make negative beliefs true. And that's why we want to turn you into a deliberate thinker. And many of you were startled to discover just how often you're thinking really nasty things about yourself. You were bummed and a little bit sad to realize, holy cow, I can't believe how often I tell myself I'm not good enough. I can't believe how often I tell myself that my ideas aren't good and I shut myself up. And there were just as many of you that were liberated when you started to realize, wait a minute, this isn't the voice of God talking to me. This is some programming that's set on default. I don't have to live my life and I don't have to have a future where I constantly say things that are negative to myself. This is the most miraculous thing that I've ever heard. And so what I want you to do in the comments is I want you to write what was the limiting belief or the negative thing that kept coming up, because there were a lot of themes. Christine Nichols said that her limiting belief is that she believes she's a quitter. She believes she can't finish anything. And she started to see examples of it over and over and over again. And what she also started to realize is, holy cow, it's a lie. There's lots of things that I've finished in my life, but if I continue to have the limiting belief that I'm a quitter, if I look out to the future, I will be giving myself permission to not go for harder things. I will give myself permission to quit. A lot of the common beliefs that we heard was that I'm too old. How many of you feel like you're too old to get the things that you want in your life? That is super common. So if you think I'm too old to do this, if you think I've run out of time, if you think, who am I at the age that I am or as young as I am to think that I could do this thing, first of all, you're wrong. And secondly, that's a limiting belief that is stopping you. It's a default mode that we need to get you out of. Huge one for you all was, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough when it comes to other people. I'm not as good as other people. And let me tell you something. This is an epidemic, feeling like you're not good enough, because way too many of us spend our days comparing our imperfect lives to perfect strangers on the internet. And so the feeling like you're not good enough, you're not measuring up, that there's some sort of imaginary race that you're running against the rest of humanity, and that by now, at this point in your life, you're supposed to be at a certain place. And how do you know that? Because every time you look on social media, there are hundreds of people in your face that seem to be at the place that you thought you would be. And so that just reinforces it. And oh my God, the default network is getting stronger. If that's how you feel, you're not alone. That was the single biggest one that we noticed in all of your comments from all over the world. I am not good enough. And we heard loud and clear that you got it from your mom, or you got it from your dad, or you got it from some horrible person that you were in a relationship with. And the problem is you started to believe it, and it got encoded in the default network. So now that you've seen it, good job. You can't get rid of the default until you actually spot it. And now that you've seen it, I want you to realize for the rest of your life, you have a job. And your job is to make sure that when that default network kicks back up and you start to murmur that you're too old, you're not smart enough, you're not good enough, that is a moment where you have got to do a mindset reset. And the way that you're going to do it, because you're learning that there's two modes of your brain, the default, I'm not good enough, and the deliberate, oh yeah, I can try, is we're going to teach you that you can think this, not that. That whenever this default mode comes up of I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not enough, whatever enough is, that you can spot it as the default and you can get deliberate and you can say something different. In the body of this broadcast on Facebook, on YouTube, where else are we putting this?
Twitter.
On Twitter, although it won't be on Twitter, the copy. But in the email that we're about to send you with links to this video, and on YouTube and on Facebook, we are going to give you a very long description of alternatives on how you think this, not that. And we're going to give you some things that you can play around with to insert to start to build a deliberate network. And if you don't like these, no problem. Make something up that you really like. But the point is that if you don't get deliberate, you will be stuck with the default mode of thinking. And the way that you reprogram your default mode of thinking so that the default becomes positive and the default becomes courageous and the default becomes loving is first you catch the negative default, and second, you direct it to something deliberate. So instead of thinking, no one likes me, this is mine because I think I'm a bad person. No one likes me. What I want you to think instead is the right people love me. That's pretty powerful. That's really powerful for me. I constantly remind myself that the right people love me, that the right people are in my life. Instead of saying, oh, nobody likes me or I'm not part of that group, I remind myself that the right people, the people I need, they're the ones that are in my life right now. If you're somebody who says, I'm too old, here's what I want you to say, I have plenty of time. Or you could say, I have so much experience, I'm definitely going to succeed. If you say, I'm too young, then say anything you want, from I have plenty of time to learn what I need to learn, to being young is an advantage, to whatever it is. The point that I'm trying to make is, if your default is negative, I don't want you to think that. I want you to catch it when you do, and then I want you to think this, something positive. If you're constantly thinking, I'm behind, you look at social media and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm losing the race of life. Then I want you to think, I'm on my own timeline. It's not I'm behind, it's I'm doing things in my own time. Another one you could say if you say I'm behind is I'm exactly where I need to be. One of the big things that I always say is that you never move to the next level of your life until you learn the lesson in this one. Instead of thinking I'm not smart enough, I want you to think, if I put in the work, I can do anything. Instead of thinking I'm not smart enough, say, hey, if I put in the work, I can learn anything. If I put in the work, I can master anything. If I put in the work, I can build anything. It's not about smarts. It's about the effort that I put in. That's another thing that you could say. Instead of saying I'm not smart enough, go, well, hey, you dummy, it's not about being smart. It's about the work. Make this yours. If you can make it funny, fantastic, because then that cuts the seriousness that so many of us bring to trying to change our lives. This can be fun, Instead of thinking I'm not good enough, I love this one. How about I'm doing the best I can? Or I'm exactly where I need to be. I think one of the most important things that you can do in life is you can ask for what you need. You can ask it of yourself. You can ask it of your work. You can ask it of your spouse. You can ask it of your family. You can ask it of your friends. And you should. Because when you ask for what you need, you are honoring what's true for you. Now, here's the interesting thing. You might not get it. And getting what you are asking for, it's not the point. When you have the courage to stop listening to those limiting default beliefs and start asking of yourself and asking of the people around you the things that you need, what you're doing in the asking is you are honoring the best part of you. And whatever it is that you receive, trust me, you need this right now because you're learning something in it. There is no experience in your life that is wasted. And so I know that many of you, because I've been reading the comments every single day, so has every member of our team, I know that so many of you are feeling at a very low point. I know you're feeling beaten down. I want to tell you something. There is something to learn in this. And one of the places that you can start is, instead of thinking about how miserable things are, and instead of thinking about how broken you feel, I want you to think about how much you've survived. I want you to think about the fact that even though you may feel broken and you may feel scared and you may feel completely overwhelmed, that in order to get beyond this, you got to understand that the world and your future are not broken and overwhelming. In fact, they are there to help you make the changes that you need. I truly believe this. I truly believe this. And so again, today, you're going to continue what you were doing yesterday, because guess what? Now that I've opened Pandora's box and you understand there's a default mode and there's a deliberate mode to the way that you think, and now that you've spent a day looking at how your default thoughts kind of stink and they make you feel bad, and you realize, wow, I could change through deliberate thinking the way that I talk to myself, this is something you're going to practice for the rest of your life. This is not a one and done. This is not an event. This is a practice. This is a process, and this is a skill. And so here's what I want you to do today. I want you to write down what is in the comments, what is your limiting belief, and what is it that you're going to think deliberately when that limiting belief comes up. So for me, when the belief comes up, nobody likes me, that's the default mode. The deliberate thing I'm going to think is the right people love me. The other one that I have is I'm constantly worried that I'm disappointing somebody. Constantly. And so when I'm worried and I feel that spidey sense come up, that tingly thing that's in your body, like, uh-oh, am I disappointing that person? Am I disappointing that person? Instead of thinking that, I'm going to think the only person I have to worry about not disappointing is me, because I'm the only person that I'm in control of anyway. In fact, I just had a big conversation with my daughter about this, about how we get so wrapped up in our lives about making sure other people are okay. And so we aren't direct, we hide information, we worry about things. And the easiest way to live your life is to just speak plainly about what's true for you. What did I just say earlier? Ask for what you need. And that also includes telling the truth about what you're thinking, about what you're doing, about who you're spending your time with. Because the minute that you're hiding information, you're kind of managing stuff with people, you're now in the default mode, because you're managing disappointing people, you're managing whether or not people like you, you're thinking that you're not good enough, so you're lying and hiding information. That's how the default mode and all these negative thinkings start to creep in and make you do things that you know you shouldn't be doing. But it starts with your thinking. If you change how you think, you will change your life. And as long as I'm busy, and as long as I'm trying to be positive, I don't deal with the crap that's actually right in front of me. And so there is something that I need you to fess up to for yourself. Because you said into the microphone that you think you're not good enough. So how does thinking that you're not good enough stop you from taking the action you need to take?
I haven't embraced technology.
Okay, now we're somewhere. Okay, I now know, and I know why. I know why. The reason why is because it's not that you don't think you're good enough, you don't think you're smart.
I'm an 8-track man.
And the thing that's underneath I'm not good enough is you actually believe you're not smart enough. And so you avoid the things that scare you. And you have a fabulous personality. I love that you're making jokes about the fact that you're an 8-track man. But the reason why, and I do the same thing, I make jokes about the I don't want to deal with either. Because it's easier. It is scary to say, I don't know how to do this. And I'm scared if I actually pivot and start focusing on technology because I need to, that I'm not going to know how. And so it's easier to be busy. And it's easier to be on television stations. And it's easier to try to do all this stuff that feels good because it's in my wheelhouse. So what are you getting out of this conversation? Because I think the procrastination is a form of stress relief. It's what you do and what I do when I feel stressed out. And so whenever I feel stressed out, I basically say, I don't have to work right now. I'm going to take a break because I feel stressed out. Because if you're working, if you're having to look at technology, you have to use this part of your brain. You have to use your prefrontal cortex because you got to focus. You got to be intentional. You got to be deliberate. And so whenever you're faced with, okay, I got to sit down now and I realize I got to go all in on social and I got to cut videos and I got to do this. No, you don't. You got to have interns that do that, first of all. But secondly, it's confronting. And that stresses you out. So that's when you procrastinate. We all do it. And so what I want you to really take a look at is, where does my story that I'm not smart, where is it blocking my dream? Where is it lying to me? Because you are smart. And here's the other thing. You don't have to be smart. You have to work hard. And you work very hard. And you are very committed. But there are things that you know. How many are you relating to this conversation? Look around. You are not alone. There are things that you know that you must focus on, but it scares you because it triggers that button in you. I just got a PhD, that's it. I hope they don't find out I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Oh God, oh my God. How do I know this is what you're thinking? Because this is what I think. I want you to look at where in your life that story is robbing you of your dreams and where it is giving you an excuse to avoid the things that you know you need to do, okay? What did you just get from our conversation?
I got that I need to meditate and see exactly why am I not taking action and start, doing it and embracing it, and I'm good enough. I'm more than enough.
You need to figure out the tech piece of this. You got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. Give me a hug. Give me a hug. The I'll be happy when.
Okay.
So many of us live that life, and we've been trained to. And the reason why we've been trained to is because if you think about school, you're home, and then we go to kindergarten, and then you go to first grade, and then you go to second grade, and then you go to third grade, and then you go to fourth grade, and then you go to fifth grade, and then you go to middle school, and then you go to high school, and then there's the pressure to go to college or to a tech school or to do something else, and then you get your job, and then you're in your job, and then you meet somebody, and then you get married, and then you're supposed to buy the house, and then you're supposed to have the kids, and maybe you get the dog before the kids or after the kids, but then you have a second kid, and then you have the 0.5 kid, because most of us do 2.5 kids, and then we get the home equity line, and then we put the kitchen addition on, and then it's like our entire lives are set out in this linear progression as people chase the dream.
The next, yeah.
And particularly for those of us who are triggered by the fear of losing control, it's only natural to anchor your feeling of being in control to chasing the next thing. Mm-hmm. And so not only are we all socialized to believe that we're supposed to climb this ladder, we're supposed to do things in a linear progression, we're supposed to get to the next thing. Yeah. We've also been marketed to by society that we'll be happier if we have a new car. We'll be happier if we have a better dishwasher. We'll be happier if we have the skin lotion that's got the almond scent. And we're also psychologically anchoring our sense of control and our sense of happiness on achieving those things. And what you're experiencing is no different than what millions and millions and millions of us experience. And that's that emptiness that you feel when you buy the lotion that smells like almond butter and it doesn't make you happy. Or you get the promotion and you have an extra $100 in your paycheck after taxes, and it means you can buy the $14 Chardonnay, not the $10 Chardonnay, and it doesn't make you happy. Yeah. And the reason why is the I'll be happy when life, the chase the carrot life, the get to the next thing life. That form of happiness requires you to be driving, let's use the car analogy again, to be going 60 miles an hour at all times. And happiness is achieved through a different formula. Mm-hmm. It happens when you're sitting at the light and you're idle. When you're in the moment doing things that make you happy. And that's being with people that you care about. It's engaging in experiences that make you happy. And it's working on things that are important to you. I had one happen today. I'll share one today. Do you guys want to hear a limiting belief that crept in today? Okay.
Sorry, someone says they're making the chicken wings right now.
Oh, you're making the chicken wings? That's hilarious. I'm going to share with you a limiting belief that crept in today. And I'm embarrassed to share this. Because if you can't cheer for people that you admire and adore and love, how in the hell can you expect them to cheer for you? But I am a human being, and I have my own insecurities. And here's what happened. I read yesterday that Brene Brown, a remarkable woman, a researcher and a professor and a 4 times over New York Times bestselling #1 author, TED Talk phenom. She has taught the world all about vulnerability. If anybody deserves all of the accolades and riches and reach and impact that comes with being wildly successful, it is Brene Brown. Nonetheless, this is not a story about Brene Brown. This is a story about Mel Robbins' limiting beliefs. Because your limiting beliefs, I don't think they ever leave you. I just think that the scale of it all either gets bigger or smaller depending on where you are in what you're up to. So yesterday, I don't even know what the hell I was doing, but I noticed a tweet congratulating Brene because she is launching her podcast. Thank God. Haven't we all been wanting a podcast from Brene Brown? Of course. And she announced it 3 days ago, and it is already #1. It hasn't even launched yet. It doesn't launch till March. She's beating Joe Rogan, who has been the king of podcasts forever. She's #1 without a podcast that's live, everybody. I immediately saw that and was like, I can't wait to listen to it. And you want to know the second thing I thought? Fuck. I will never be that successful. Might as well not even launch a podcast. Brene Brown's already out there unlocking everybody and talking about emotional fitness and messiness. And, oh man, no room for me. I'm sharing this with you, even though it's an embarrassing and vulnerable and small, meaning mentally small story, because I want you to understand that your limiting beliefs, my limiting beliefs, they will always be there. It's part of being human. And when I feel that kind of self-imposed discouragement, to me, that's a sign that I really want something, but I'm scared. That's what that means. I am in the middle of lots of talks about podcasts right now. And I am nervous about launching one. I'm nervous about my capacity to do it. I'm nervous about the amount of time that it's going to take. I'm nervous that there's 750,000 podcasts out there for real. And how do you break through and provide value when there's so much noise? And, you know, my ego's also like, I want to launch something that's really successful. And so these are all, again, valid things that come up. And I think the key to being emotionally strong and to being self-aware is to recognize when those limiting beliefs come up and shrink your thinking, and then take a look at the thing that you're beating yourself up about, because I guarantee it's just fear. You're just afraid. And the problem for most of us is as soon as that fear creeps in and you start going, oh, why bother writing a song? J-Lo already has songs. Why bother writing a book? I mean, Stephen King, you know, how stupid is that?
Honestly, how stupid is that thinking? It's ridiculous. There's room for everybody. And somebody else's success just proves that you can be successful too. Somebody else's success just proves that people are craving that kind of content. I need to work on the fact that I feel insecure about my ability to be able to do something to the level that I want to do it. And the smart thing to do with that insight is not to beat the shit out of myself and tell myself, okay, no podcast for Mel. It's to say, oh, all right, well, clearly I care about this. So what do I need to learn? What skills do I need to build? What people do I need to meet? What resources do I need to surround myself? What timeline do I need to create that is supportive of what my true biggest aspirations are? Funny how this tiny little story is indicative of everything that we're talking about inside this course, Best Decade Ever. Because this is the process of pursuing your dreams. It's not only stating them that so you can create them, but it's also, once you state them so you can create them, do not drag that dog out here because everyone, Chris, do not do that because all the animal lovers will scream at you for torturing our dog.
Does this look like torture? Excuse me? No, I don't think so.
No, I know, but still, do not drag him. Okay. Treats. He just wants to hang out with me. See, he's going to be back here in 5 seconds flat. That story is indicative of what you're going to go through. You're going to state that you want to do something. You're going to get all freaking excited about it. You're going to start talking about it. And then someone in your ecosystem is going to announce that they're doing it. Someone that's bigger than you. Someone that you admire. Someone with more resources. Someone with a better reputation. Someone with better credentials is going to suddenly be doing that thing that you want to be doing. And then you're going to have that moment of crisis that I had yesterday, where you feel vulnerable, where you feel scared, where you feel afraid. That is what it means to be human. That is what it means to pursue your dreams. That is going to happen to you 1,000,000 times in the best decade of your life. Because when those sorts of things happen to you, it means you're doing something to change your life. It means you're wanting to grow. And it means you're awakening your perspective to all the possibility around there. And some of the possibility is going to be wildly inspiring, and some of it's going to be really confronting. And so what I want to say about Brene launching a podcast is I cannot wait to listen to it. And I'm really excited that a podcast that's about helping people and understanding ourselves better is the #1 podcast in the world right now, because it means that the world wants that kind of content. And that means I'm coming, baby. I'm coming. It also means, because I realize that my aspirations and my dreams are really big, that I got to do the work to put the team around me and the timeline around me. And I got to do the work to develop the skills so that I can achieve the dreams that I really want to achieve.
What is your limiting belief? What is the thing that you think about yourself? Maybe your parents or your mother or your father taught you to think that way about yourself. Maybe you went through a horrible breakup and that person made you feel unworthy. Maybe you've had a bunch of setbacks in your life and that's what gave you that limiting belief. But what is your limiting belief? Because today, what we're going to do today is we're going to take it a step further. Now that you've identified your limiting belief, we're going to look at what is it costing you to choose to repeat it. Because remember the quote I started with. You have a choice right now. You get to repeat the things you've always done, or you can evolve them and become more deliberate. Let's talk about the cost of that limiting belief. I'm going to go first. So write down your limiting belief. I see a lot of, I'm not good enough. My mental health is holding me back. I can't run a successful business. I'm lazy and I can't do anything. I'm not healthy enough. Money is the issue. I'm scared to fail. What is the limiting belief that you have? I'm certain it has something to do with not being enough. Once you've written that down, you're afraid of failure. You don't deserve success, all that kind of stuff. I don't know how to start. These are excellent. You're doing an excellent job. The first step to moving from that default into getting deliberate is actually seeing it. So seeing it is fantastic because now we can start to understand that, whoa, this got programmed in. It's my default mode. I want to get rid of it. How do we get rid of it? Well, let's first identify why you want to. let's take a hard look at the cost of having this limiting belief. So in order to figure out the cost of having the limiting belief, what's my limiting belief? That I'm not a good person. That's my limiting belief. That I am not a good person. That you don't think I'm a good person. That I don't think I'm a good person. And here's what you're going to do in order to identify the cost, okay? You're going to ask yourself 3 questions, and they're very simple. What is this limiting belief in my case that I'm not a good person? What does it cost me in my past to think this way? What is it costing me in this present moment to think that I'm not a good person? And here's the kicker. If I don't evolve this, if I don't get deliberate, what is it going to cost me in the future to continue to think that I'm not a good person? So in the past, thinking that I'm not a good person, it did a bunch of things. First of all, it made me very sad. Secondly, it made me a liar because I assumed that I wasn't good enough and I'm not a good person, so I got to pretend to be somebody else. It also made me cheat on people because I didn't think I deserved love. And it also, by believing that I wasn't a good person, it somehow justified the bad behavior. I mean, if I'm a bad person, then I do bad things, right? What does it cost me in the present to believe that I'm not a good person? Well, it costs me a lot of joy. It costs me connection and friendships because I'm constantly questioning whether or not people actually like me for me. It makes me second guess myself and whether or not I deserve the success. And what does it cost me in the future? It's going to cost me everything. If I continue to repeat this pattern and I continue to allow myself to default to believing that I'm not a good person, I will never be fully happy. I will never be fully present. I probably will not be successful when we launch this new daytime talk show in the fall. And so I got a choice to make, and I want to get rid of this because I can see what allowing myself to believe that I'm not a good person is costing me. This exercise of identifying your limiting belief and then seeing what it's cost you in your past, your present, and your future is so important for you to do that I want to give you another example. So to really, really drive it home, okay? And so I want to bring in my husband. Why don't you scoot on this? I don't know if you can lean in on that thing. You sit on this chair. I'm going to bring in my husband, Christopher Robbins. Yes, if you've ever been a fan of Winnie the Pooh, his name is Christopher Robbins. And Chris is going to go through this exercise too. And I think it's important for we're sharing a chair here, and so we're like really close. I think it's important for you guys to know that Chris is one of the partners in our media company. He's our CFO, and he's also the founder of a men's retreat called Soul Degree. And he's a yoga instructor and president of the Booster Club. So this is a guy that's like really accomplished and super amazing. So with that context, founder of Soul Degree, what's your limiting belief?
Well, of course, it would be appropriate. That I think forever it's just been that I'm not good enough. I think that's it, succinctly, that I'm not living up. And certainly in the past, it's been all around the decisions I've made career-wise. Never thinking that I was in fact good enough, which just took away from, I suppose, all the joy that I could have had.
Were you really sad when you were little?
Yeah, I think I was just down and out, probably feeling alone, and like the decisions I had made along the path were not the right ones, and then that subsequently not performing, and or at least not performing to my own expectation.
So how has not feeling good enough? I can see how it would make you feel sad, especially, you know, there's so much pressure on men to succeed, feeling like you weren't good enough in your career, blah, blah, blah. Even ski racing, because you grew up as a kid ski racing. How did you feeling not good enough impact the way you raced?
I probably just could have skied a lot better than even I did because I was constantly thinking it wasn't good enough.
And now what about in the present? What is the default belief that you're not good? Is it like, how is it still in your life in this moment? Because here's the thing about a limiting belief, guys. is that everybody will look at you on the outside and they'll be convinced you don't have it. They'll be shocked that you believe that about yourself. And that's why it's important for you to be honest with yourself about what your limiting belief is, because it's something you are doing to yourself. So what is the belief that you're not good enough? How is that impacting your life right now, Chris?
Probably has everything to do with just being the point parent. As much as I love being the point parent and having the time with the kids that I have, given your own schedule.
Let me explain what that means. So Chris and I Chris and I, because of the amount of work that I use, Chris is the one that is home more often. He's the one that is really in charge of what's going on with the kids. He has been home for these last 3 to 4 years, playing a huge role in the back end of our company. But the primary role is the parent. And traditionally, at least in the United States, it's the woman that does that. And so it's been, I think, a very fulfilling yet confronting thing for Chris to be playing that role in, am I saying this correctly?
Totally.
Just to bring everybody up to speed?
Just embracing the idea that me being the one at home handling the lion's share of the things at home are, of course, consistent with my negative belief that that's not good enough, that that's not being supportive enough.
Is it also with success? Like that's not enough in terms of your own career, even though you founded a men's retreat?
Well,
seriously.
You mean?
Well, you run Soul Degree. You run the Booster Club for the high school. You teach yoga classes. You are a CFO, and it's still not enough. And here's the thing that's so interesting, everybody. I'm going to ask Chris a question he doesn't know I'm going to ask him. If you could go back and do something different these last 3 or 4 years and actually go and work and build a business that's solely your own and not be around, and I mean, would you trade the years that you've had with our kids the last 3 years or for something else?
No, definitely not.
Well, see, then that's the thing that's crazy is here you're sitting here torturing yourself saying, you're not good enough, you're not good enough, it's not enough, it's not enough. But given the option, if we could wave a magic wand and change everything and the circumstances would be different, but you had to trade the time that you had with our kids, would you do it? The answer is no. So here's the thing that's interesting, and I'm so happy that you admitted to that because it points out the fact that your default thinking isn't logical. It's just a habit. It's something you've been doing for so long that you don't even realize it. And even though it doesn't serve you, and even though, like Chris just said, he would never change a thing, and yet he still thinks it's not enough. That to me means that there is some automation here that's going on in your brain where it's set on default. Oh, I got to just think I'm not enough. I got to think I'm not enough. I got to think I'm not enough. You know? Well, here's the bigger question. If you allow this default mode to stay programmed in your brain, how is that going to impact your future? Particularly if you think about things like your aspirations for Soul Degree, the men's retreat that you run.
I think that if it perpetuates, then I'm obviously my own impediment to what I want it to be. You know, if I'm constantly in that mindset of it's not enough, I haven't done enough, then how could Soul Degree ever become what it should be?
What do you want it to become?
I think I would love to see it touch as many men's lives.
You're about to cry, I could tell.
Yeah, as possible.
Why do you get choked up?
Just because I know the impact. I've experienced the positive impact that it can have, and I don't. It's limitless, I think, in the difference that it could make, regardless even of your age. So it's.
Do you see how your limiting belief, the default thinking that you're not enough, will prevent you from?
Oh, totally.
How does it stop you when you think you're not enough? How does it stop you? Like, what are the things that you do when you start getting in that mindset?
Well, it's probably things that you don't do, right? Because if you're not going to be good enough, well, why go do that thing? Whether it's write more or, sort of test the elasticity of what Soul Degree could be also. I mean, it's in a state where there's still so much that we could do to enhance the experience, have it reach more people, which starts with my own. Again, I think part of the limitation is that I've always argued, hey, I'm a shitty marketer. I'm not good at putting the word out, if you will. And even this conversation, talking about something like Soul Degree is.
How many of you can relate to this?
I could be a lot better at that. You're just
stopping yourself, not all the time because of your limiting belief. Like you go to write a blog post about the thing that fills your heart and you're like, ooh, should I really put this out there? That's your limiting belief. That's your default setting. And you're dead right, Chris, and it's the same thing for me and the same thing for Mandy. What was yours?
I'll never get there.
I'll never get there. I love that one. I'll never get there. Yeah. Because you can feel like just the no matter how hard I try, it's never going to be enough. I'm never going to get there. It's never going to happen. And how that sets you up to just race and race and race and race. And Danielle, what's yours?
But I'm not smart enough.
I'm not smart enough. Yeah, I'm not smart enough to do this. And so if your belief, the default that got programmed a long time ago is I'm not smart enough, then you'll tell yourself, I'm not smart enough to write this blog post. I'm not smart enough to figure this out. I'm not smart enough to build that kind of business. And I'm smart enough to attract the kind of person that I want. And the thing that's scary about default settings, everybody, is that not only are they automated in the default network in your brain, but they're a protection mechanism. By thinking you're not good enough, not smart enough, I'll never get there, not a good person, you actually hold yourself back. And that's one of the reasons why we cling to it. And so if you haven't already, because we're going to wrap up this training and I'm going to tell you what's coming up tomorrow and then we're going to answer questions. If you haven't already,
you got to hear the quote, though, from Nepo today.
Oh, okay.
It's so on point.
See, Soul Degree right here. So every morning.
It's so cheesy, but
no,
it's
so
not.
Good. Every morning, Chris, and I mostly sometimes, Chris reads from this. This is so tattered. He's been doing it for years. My mom also reads this book every single day. Your mom reads this book every single day. It's a page or two every single day. Mark Nero was fighting cancer when he wrote this. And it's beautiful. So
Nepo.
Mark Nepo. Did I say it wrong? Nemo. I said Nemo.
But
Finding Nemo.
I'll just read a snippet because it's so on point for January 3rd. That is the 3rd, right, today?
Yeah.
Each person is born with an unencumbered spot, free of expectation and regret, free of ambition and embarrassment, free of fear and worry, an umbilical spot of grace where we are each first touched by God. It is this spot of grace that issues peace. Psychologists call this spot the psyche, theologians call it the soul, Jung calls it the seat of the unconscious, Hindu masters call it the Atman, Buddhists call it Dharma, Rilke calls it inwardness, Sufis call it Qualb, and Jesus calls it the center of our love. To know this spot of inwardness is to know who we are, not by surface markers of identity, not by where we work, or what we wear, or how we like to be addressed, but by feeling our place in relation to the infinite and by inhabiting it. This is the hard, lifelong task, for the nature of becoming is a constant filming over where we begin, while the nature of being is a constant erosion of what is not essential.
Oh.
Each of us lives in the midst of this ongoing tension, growing tarnished or covered over, only to be worn back to that incorruptible spot of grace at our core.
Well, I would say the one word that came to mind when you were reading that was, let's see if I can find it, not essential. You know, what's not essential is your default thinking and your negative belief. And in fact, it is essential that you get rid of it. You're awesome. You don't have to go. I'm gonna keep wrapping.
I am
this.
gonna go.
You are going? Where are you
Bye,
going?
everyone. I'm sure
He's got a blog post to write because now he's gotten rid of his limiting belief. Bye.
See ya.
Okay. So tomorrow, so I want you to write your limiting belief in there. And here's another thing. What is it costing you right now? What are the things you're not doing because of that limiting belief? For me, not being a good person, I think it's the thing that keeps me isolating myself. And it also, I can see how, just like Chris was explaining, that his limiting belief has him not doing things like writing more blog posts and putting himself out there. Even though I'm out there, there's, I think, a level to which I'm not because of this belief that I'm not a good person. So I want you to write in the comments what's your limiting belief and what's it costing you right now. What are you not doing because of it? And I want to come back to the opening quote. You have a choice. You're either going to repeat what you're doing or you're going to evolve it. And when you ask yourself these three questions, what is my limiting belief cost me in the past? What's it costing me right now? And what is it going to cost me if I continue to choose to do it? If I continue to choose to be on default? Hopefully getting in touch with that will help you, give you, motivate you, push you to choose to be deliberate in what you're thinking next. Because tomorrow what we're going to be talking about is how do you create a deliberate belief, one that you don't believe yet. We're going to teach you how to think this, not that. Because it's essential that you have something to go to for when you catch yourself going to that default. So trust me when I tell you, tomorrow we are going to take you from the, oh my God, I need to stop doing this, and into the mode of, okay, I got this. I can think this, not that. What do you do if you cannot identify the limiting belief? Let's go and look at your actions first, okay? So we're going to work backwards from your actions. If you think about your goals and you think about the things that you need to do, the actions you need to take in order to make your goals a reality. So if your goal is to be healthier and you know that you need to eat better and you need to exercise, but you're not doing it, let's go and look at the excuses. Why aren't you doing it? Yeah, maybe you say you're lazy. Maybe you say you're tired. Maybe you say that you don't have time. But underneath the I don't have time and I am lazy is something else. And it's probably that you think you don't deserve it, or you think that you're not good enough to be healthy, or you think that you're not lovable or worthy of it. So if you have trouble looking at your limiting beliefs, look first at the things that you're not doing. I'm not writing blog posts even though I want to build this business. I'm not working on my website even though I want to build this business. Why? What's the excuse? And then if you go a step beneath the excuse, I'm too tired, I don't have time, I don't know how, what is really the belief you have about yourself that's keeping you from pushing yourself to greatness? You got it? What is that? Because if you go there, I think you'll start to see a theme. Okay, first of all, there's nothing wrong with you. Here's my theory, okay? Here's my theory as to how it is that we all got stuck with a negative default network in terms of our limiting beliefs. Human beings require other human beings to take care of them in order to survive. You cannot be born, pop out of the womb, and just make it on your own. You need physical contact. You need other human beings to take care of you. We are hardwired from survival to connect and fit in. We are a pack species, no matter how introverted or shy you may be. And I think that biological, evolutionary fact about survival makes us super in tune to what the other human beings, namely our parents, are doing, because we don't ever want to get kicked out of the pack. That would mean we're in trouble from a survival instinct. And so I think as little kids, in order to keep the peace, in order to fit in order to be loved, we basically are constantly assessing what mom or dad are doing. And then we are judging ourselves and coming up with strategies to survive. So you might have had a parent that was emotionally abusive. You might have had a parent that was an alcoholic. You might have had a mom who was awesome but stressed, and you were on edge. And so whenever your mom got upset, you started to think something's wrong with me. Whenever your parents fought, you thought something's wrong with me. Whenever your mom got upset with you, you started to get worried that you were doing something wrong. And so instead of, as a 6-year-old, 5-year-old, you don't have the intellectual capacity at that point to go, wow, mom's stressed out. Must be something at work. We all go, something's wrong with me. And so we start to, not because our parents are doing it intentionally, but based on the fact that we need other human beings to take care of us. We need to be connected to a pack. We need to be connected to somebody, our parents namely. You start to internalize negative messaging as a kid. I'm not worthy. You know, if mom would love me, she would treat me differently. My dad wouldn't yell at me if I were worthy. If only I did something. If I were different, my parents wouldn't fight. If I were different, my dad would be happy. If I were different, my mom wouldn't be so upset. I think that's where they come from. I really do. Do you have anything to add to that?
Nope.
Mandy?
That's actually scientifically proven.
It's scientifically proven?
Yeah, human beings have a need to be seen. And
We have a need to be seen.
It starts at birth because you either are seen or you die.
That's true. Because if your parents are not paying attention to you, you will die. You need to be fed. You need to be protected. You need to be clothed. You can't even walk until you're a year old. Mm-hmm. You can't even crawl or scoot until you're 7, 8 months. You are completely, positively exposed and vulnerable. And so I think all of the default mode that you have is either because somebody in your childhood directly said, you suck, I didn't want you, you're not worthy, or you were directly abused, either emotionally, physically, or sexually, and that left you feeling like you're not good enough or not lovable or not worthy or that people are out to get you. Or you were just trying to fit in. And so you developed ways of thinking in order to not make mom mad. You developed ways of thinking in order to not make dad mad. And that was the default. And here's the thing, it worked when you were little. It worked. That's why you kept doing it. No big deal. It worked. Okay? You made it this far. What did I say the other day? You're the oldest, the wisest, the most experienced you've ever been. Yep. And that means that you have the ability to make a choice at this point to evolve and become more deliberate. The default mode served a purpose when you were little. Now you're an adult, and it's time for you to get deliberate about how you think. How do you help kids identify limiting beliefs? Think about it like an inquiry. So remember the coaching that I just gave about identifying the things you're not doing. So ask your kids, what are the things that if they had a little bit more confidence or courage, what would they be doing differently at school? What are some of the things they might try? And then ask them, well, why don't you do it now? What are the things that you think about yourself that make you think that you're not capable of that? You can kind of dig it that way. And, you know, I think just asking a lot of questions and doing a lot of listening. You probably know what your kids' limiting beliefs are. I mean, I know I would like to just crawl inside the heads of Oakley, Kendall, and Sawyer and take a bar of soap and just scrub it right out of there and clean out their thoughts so that that negativity, that questioning, that anxiety, that's so part of being a teenager, isn't it? Because biologically, evolutionary standpoint, when you're a teenager, you go through a process of separating from your family. And guess what pack is the most intense and important pack in your life? It's your peer group. This is also proven by science. And so you go from 0 to 13, making sure that you fit in with your parents and you're not upsetting them, to now, oh my God, my peers are life and death for me, and I got to fit in with them. And so then you come up with a whole nother default way of thinking in order to survive that. Well, I'm here to tell you, It's time to get deliberate. You're an adult. It's time to take control of how you think. If you're a kid who's watching this, you can get deliberate too. You can decide what you want to think about yourself. You can decide who you're going to hang out with so that you feel good about yourself. And when you start realizing that you can be in control of the way that you talk to yourself, your life is going to change. Instagram. This is from Casterock. What if your limiting belief has truth to it? Of course it has truth to it. If you tell yourself something else, aren't you delusional? No. Listen, your limiting belief has truth to it because guess what? In the past, you believed the fact that you weren't enough. And that justified you in not doing things. And so you have evidence. Look, I used to believe I was a really bad person. I did horrible things because I believed I was a bad person. I was a bad person. You see, this is why it's paramount that you get control of your limiting beliefs. If you believe you're a bad person, you will do bad things. You will cheat on people. You will lie. You will drink too much. You might steal. You will rob yourself of all of the potential and joy and opportunity of your life because you believe you're a bad person. So why the hell not just do those bad things? See, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You better believe you have evidence because you believed it. All you're going to see is evidence for where you gave up. All you're going to see is evidence for where you didn't believe in yourself. All you're going to see is evidence for where you hung out with people far too long that treated you like garbage because you thought you were garbage. Of course it has truth to it because you acted consistently with it. This is why if you want to get healthy, you have to change your belief system that you are somebody that can be healthy. Because if you believe that you're a fat, lazy, unhealthy slob and you're standing in front of the refrigerator, guess what a fat, lazy, unhealthy slob is going to grab? Something that a fat, lazy, unhealthy slob would eat. If that's what you believe, that's how you act. Which is why it's paramount that you identify, holy cow, that's my default way of thinking. No wonder I act the way I act. Now let's get deliberate. I am getting healthier every day. You tell yourself that. You open the fridge, I am getting healthier every day. And you start to look inside that. What are you going to pick? You're going to get the apple. You're going to eat the whole food. You're not going to eat the processed junk. It starts with your belief system. And so, yes, your limiting belief has truth in it. And you, to break the cycle, must change your belief to something that's powerful and expansive and positive. Because guess what? The more that you think this positive thing, the more you're going to see the truth in it. And the more consistently you're going to act with it.
Your book, The 5-Second Rule, can you talk about how that in this situation can be beneficial and how you use that?
Okay, great. So the 5-second rule is a simple little brain hack. Has a lot of science. It's going to sound dumb, but it's really, really powerful. In a moment where you're either hesitating or you're thinking something really rotten, like, oh, there's an awkward pause in this conversation. I bet she doesn't actually like me. You're inserting something. Just count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1s. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the counting backwards interrupts the negative thought. So the second I start counting backwards, as my mind is telling me, oh, this person must not like you. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You're like, boop, slap you out of my mind. And the counting backwards makes this part of your brain focus on the counting. And the second that you get to 1, you have a moment of control. And that's where you can insert a different thought.
Yes. I love that. It's so simple. And that is your superpower. Simplicity is your superpower. I don't know if anyone's told you about it, but simplicity is your superpower. And I think that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, because we always have to change those limiting beliefs. And I say into liberating affirmations, but you also work a lot with limiting beliefs.
Yes.
Right? And can you kind of dive into that and like how you really work with your limiting beliefs on a regular basis?
Well, so staying on the 5-second rule for a second, the 5-second rule is extraordinarily powerful because step 1 of breaking and replacing limiting beliefs that have probably been in your brain for a lifetime. And when you really start to examine them, might actually be generational.
Yeah.
So your limiting beliefs may be your mother's limiting beliefs and your grandmother's limiting beliefs and your great-grandmother's limiting beliefs. because the human brain is designed to learn patterns. So if you hear somebody either being hard on themselves or being hard on you as a child, you tend to adopt that pattern of speaking as your own to yourself. And so step one of breaking and replacing limiting beliefs is to start to become aware of what those beliefs are.
Right.
And so for today, the next week, whatever, I want you to just notice when your mind or your mood drifts to a negative place. And it's important to just notice it. That's it. Just notice it. You're not going to be able to replace it just yet because you're so used to drifting into this negative landscape. And, you know, the experts that study thought patterns say that we have between 50 and 80,000 thoughts a day. They estimate that between 80 to 90% of them are negative. And so your resting state is likely negative. And so the first step is let's just start to pay attention. And there's a simple way to pay attention. You don't even have to be paying attention to what you're thinking about. Just pay attention to whether or not you're present or whether or not your energy is low. That's it. If your energy feels kind of low, if you feel kind of heavy, if you feel kind of like just in a negative emotional state, I guarantee your mind's probably negative. So that's step one. Step two, when you start to realize you're there, just immediately take control in 5 seconds. Count backwards. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It'll snap you out of autopilot in the subconscious negative state into the conscious part of your brain. And then say this. I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking about that. And I want you to start there because we cannot trust you. And I'm saying that for real. You cannot trust yourself having thought these negative things for this long to actually successfully punch them in the face and then replace them with something positive. We got to just get skilled at spotting it and interrupting it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm not thinking about that. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm not thinking about that. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm not thinking about that. And for the first week, you might say, I'm not thinking about that 73 times a day. But what you're doing is you're doing that hand to fist combat with the negative thoughts that run on default. You're like, punch, no, I'm not doing that. Punch, I'm not thinking about that. 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 Then you can get into what you're talking about. What is an anchor thought? An anchor thought is a extremely powerful and proven way for you to take control of what you're thinking about when your mind starts to spiral. And an anchor thought is any thought that makes you excited, happy, think positive emotions here. I'm going to give you examples, don't worry. An anchor thought is something that you have predetermined and planned in advance that you're going to go to in your mind and picture. This is like a form of visualization in a situation where normally you feel anxiety. And you're going to use this practice of having a predetermined anchor thought in situations that make you nervous or anxious to go to as a method to anchor yourself down, to calm down your body, and to take control of what you're thinking about in situations that normally make you anxious. So let me give you a couple examples of what a anchor thought is and why you want to do them before a situation. So you can use anchor thoughts for everything from anchoring yourself in a positive vision as you're getting out of bed and thinking about the day ahead. And instead of letting your worries, anxiety, overwhelm, and nerves about dealing with your boss or facing the conflict in your house or whatever it may be, hijack your mind, you're going to anchor yourself in something positive and exciting about today. And if you can't think of anything positive and exciting about today, I'm going to coach you through that. Don't worry. If you have anxiety about work, you're going to anchor down on a moment from your past or a moment that you're excited about in your future that made you happy or excited. If you have anxiety about school, I want you to think about a thing about school that you like, one person, one teacher, one moment in your past where you did really good because you put in the effort and you got a really good grade on a test, or you felt really excited about what you were learning. And your anchor thought is going to be, I'm so excited to feel that way again. I'm going to give you a very specific example now. So I use anchor thoughts to deal with. I used to be an incredibly nervous flyer. I was convinced that if I got on a plane, I was going to die in a plane crash. And for the entire week leading up to getting on a plane, I would be nervous about it. I would be thinking about it. I would be thinking about sending, like if we were going away for the holidays, I would be thinking about sending the presents ahead via the mail in case the plane crashed. I'd be doing all kinds of like I was like a nutcase about this. And so the way that I started using anchor thoughts in order to change the way that I thought and felt on a plane is this. I would think about, before I got on a plane, I would think about something that I was excited to do once I got to the place that I was flying to. So for example, tomorrow I am flying to Vegas, and I'm going to think about a particular restaurant that I love in Vegas. And I'm going to think about what I'm going to order when I get to that restaurant. And I'm going to think about how delicious it's going to taste. And this person, my friend Mo, that I'm going to see. And so I've got my anchor thought, which makes me happy and excited, what I'm going to do when I get to Vegas. And when I get on that plane, and if I start to get nervous and my stomach starts to rumble and my body starts to feel anxious and my thoughts start to spiral, I immediately start saying to myself, I am so excited to get to Vegas and to go to that restaurant and to see my friend Mo. And notice I'm closing my eyes because I'm visualizing it. And I'm visualizing how happy I'm going to be when I see her. And that very specific, positive, excited, happy visualization of what I'm going to do when I get to Vegas, it settles my body, having that in my mind. It focuses my mind on something positive. And I, by using an anchor thought to weigh me down in terms of weigh down what I'm thinking about, and direct my body sensations to be positive, something crazy happens. When the plane's flying and we hit turbulence, and normally I'd be like, oh my God, we're about to die. Oh, what's happening? What's happening? I interrupt that anxiety response and that worry, and I go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, using the 5-second rule, and awakening my prefrontal cortex. And then I literally just go, I'm so excited to be at that restaurant tonight to see my friend Mel. And here's what happens in my body. By taking control of my thinking, I change my body state. I've directed my thoughts. I've won the mental game. And my mind goes, oh, yeah, she's excited. And here's what's really interesting about it. Normally, if I were on a plane and I got nervous, the plane starts to bounce, right? So what happens? Immediately your mind starts to worry. Then your body starts to feel anxious because your mind is so busy worrying about whether or not the plane makes it. And then because your body is now starting to get anxious and you got a pit in your stomach and your armpits are starting to sweat and your heart is starting to race, the body sensations that were caused by your mind thinking worries are now getting worse, and now the worries get worse. So it becomes this self-fulfilling thing. And you actually make yourself miserable. You cause the anxiety from your thoughts. And then your body, in the anxiety response, then causes your thoughts to get even worse. And it becomes worse and worse and worse until you're hyperventilating or convinced you're going to die, or you start crying, or whatever it may be. You can interrupt that and win the mental game and take control. I'm not kidding you, by deciding to. And you can say, I'm 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm not going to think about dying right now. And first of all, it's not going to help. I mean, I'm not flying the plane, so I'm going to take control of what I'm thinking about so I'm not miserable as we're flying. And drop in the anchor thought. Anchoring you down. Even the word anchoring has a strength to it. Instead of your thoughts drifting all over the place, you're anchoring down and you're making your mind do exactly what you want it to do. And what I want it to do is to think about what I'm excited about when I get to Vegas. Because here's the thing about it. If I go to that restaurant and I see my friend Mo, obviously the plane made it. And so one of the other things that's powerful about an anchor thought is because your anchor thoughts relate to what you're doing, it makes sense to your brain, so your brain believes it. So going back to the example of work, think of a moment when you were proud. School, think of a moment when you were proud. And tell yourself, I'm excited to feel that way again, or I'm excited to do well on this test, or I'm excited to learn what I'm going to learn, or I'm excited to have this conversation with my professor, or get this test over with and feel good again. And because the anchor thought that you're creating is related to what you're doing, it is going to make sense to your brain, your body will settle, you're going to get control of your mind, and that is how you win the mental game. You notice when your thoughts drift, you notice when the worries are starting, and you, boom, cut it off with an anchor thought. Let me give you another example, and then we're going to go into questions. Because what I want you to do for every single trigger you have, we had you yesterday in video 14, go through your day and come up with every single trigger that triggers your thoughts to spiral to the negative. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use the power and the science of anchor thoughts, something that we can think of that you can anchor down on that is positive, happy, exciting, encouraging, about somehow related to the thing that's triggering you. And I'm going to walk you through some examples. I want to give you another one, though, for those of you that have kids that are watching. So when my son, our son was younger, he used to be completely anxious about sleepovers. There was just something about sleepovers that really freaked him out. And so before sleepovers, we would come up with an anchor thought that was related to the sleepover itself. So what are you excited to do in the morning? Now, notice I said the morning. The reason why we would always do the mornings is because he wasn't nervous about starting the sleepover. He was nervous about completing it. So we came up with an anchor thought that was about what he was excited to be doing in the morning. Were they going to make pancakes? Were they going to lay around and play Fortnite? And that anchor thought about what made him excited about what he was going to do in the morning, it was his go-to. So as we were driving over and he'd start to look at me and go, I don't know, Mom, I'm a little nervous. I'm like, great, let's go to the anchor thought. And he's like, okay, here we go. I'm really excited to have pancakes because she makes great pancakes. Great, that's great. And then all of a sudden his body stations would drop down. The other thing that I would recommend that you do with kids is come up with the anchor thought for all the things that trigger them and also come up with a plan B. So a plan B is, okay, so you've got your anchor thought, my dear. You're excited about the pancakes. If it's 9 o'clock at night and you start to get that rumbling feeling in your stomach and you start to get worried about being at the sleepover, no problem. You're going to use your anchor thought, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm so excited for pancakes in the morning. And that's going to settle your stomach, and it's also going to distract your thoughts and direct them and anchor them. And that should start to take care of the rumbling feelings in your stomach, and that should start to take care of the things that are making you nervous. And then what we're going to do is you're also going to have a plan B. So with our son, for example, and this is important with anxiety, always go to the worst case scenario and plan out, okay, so let's say the worst case scenario happens. Let's say you decide you can't make it through the night. No problem. Just call me and I'll come get you. So that you're taking away worries. If you have to talk to your boss and you got your anchor thought, you're really excited. Here's another thing. If you obsess about getting fired, you obsess about being made wrong, come up with like your plan B, which is like, okay, I've got my thing. I'm so excited to go in there. I'm so excited to actually say what I need to say. I'm so excited for the situation to change. I'm so excited to make a difference with my work. And my ultimate plan B, let's say I get fired tomorrow for speaking what I speak. What's the first thing I'm going to do? What's my plan if that happens? I'm going to collect my stuff. I'm going to say goodbye to my friends. And I'm going to go home. And I'm going to look for a job. That's what's going to happen. Because if you go to the worst case scenario and you make a plan for what you're going to do. It's another way to sort of backstop your mind from catastrophizing. Nicole writes, I'm an emotional eater and spender, Mel. I'm slowly getting bigger by using food as a way to numb pain. How many of you can relate to that? That there's something that you're doing that you reach for as a distraction or a way to numb your pain. Maybe you eat emotionally. Maybe you take the edge off of your stress by drinking too much every night. Maybe you rearrange the furniture in your house, or you're constantly painting the walls in your bedroom because you think if you shift things around that somehow that's going to change the bigger issues in your life. The thing about eating, drinking, having affairs, changing your furniture, shopping, porn addiction, anything that you might reach for as a distraction. The thing that's interesting about that is that all those distractions are things that you're doing, right? You're keeping yourself busy and distracted so that you don't have to pay attention to what it's like to be here. And that's one of the reasons why it's so important for you to learn how to do a mindset reset, because it doesn't matter how much you drink or eat or shop or watch porn or do drugs or cheat. All of those things are never going to improve your life, and you know it. They are delaying the inevitable, which means there's going to come a moment in time where these destructive things that you're doing in order to numb the pain and avoid the work, they're going to come to a head, and they're going to have a catastrophic impact on your life. And you can either continue to numb the pain, and you can do things that are destructive, and you can know that you are marching toward it either imploding your health, your bank account, your sanity, your marriage, your job, your entire life, or you can face it right now and you can start doing the powerful work. Yeah, it'll be painful in the beginning. It'll be painful because you're changing habits. But you can start doing the powerful work to change the way that you think, so that when you see food and the default way that you think is, oh, I've had a bad day. That croissant would just be awesome. Or that cookie would be amazing. Or screw it, I'll have a piece of cake tonight. I deserve, oh. If that's the default way that you numb yourself that way, the deliberate way of thinking is to start to shift, and instead of thinking that you should just eat your pain away, that you stop and you say to yourself, no, I'm becoming a healthy person. I am in control. I love myself so much, I'm going to make deliberate decisions. That's what the work of the mindset reset is. Is it going to be hard? Yeah, it's going to be hard because you're changing behavior. I mean hard not in the sense that it's difficult and you can't do it. I mean hard in the sense that it's going to feel uncomfortable. But you are capable of making these changes. You truly are. You are capable of making this happen. And so, I think it's really important that you realize that you change your life one decision at a time. And if you're getting bigger using food as a way to numb your pain, now is the time to interrupt that default before you have a heart attack, or before you get so big that it ruins your marriage or it makes you depressed. You have to make decisions now that interrupt the patterns that are destroying your life. You say, I buy my kids and husband things we can't afford all the time to make up for how inadequate I feel as a wife and mother. Let me tell you something. There's nothing that you can buy at Target or Walmart or the mall that will be better than giving your kids and your husband a wife and a mother who feels happy and proud of herself and comfortable in her own skin. I used to have that exact same pattern. When Chris and I were facing bankruptcy 10 years ago, and I felt like the world's biggest loser, and I had lost my job, and my God, it was a struggle just to buy groceries every single week, I would literally spend an hour just walking the aisles at DSW, which is the designer shoe warehouse. And I would walk the aisles and try on shoes. And occasionally I would buy a pair with money I didn't have. And, even the $23 on the sale rack was a purchase that could impact whether or not we could truly buy the groceries that we needed. Why was I doing it? Because it was an escape. Why was I doing it? Because I was so scared about the situation that we were in that it was more comfortable to pretend things were okay. It was more comfortable to go to DSW and have an hour where I pretended that I was a normal person that had my act together and that could afford to do that. But the truth is, here's the hard truth. Yeah, it felt comfortable to escape for a second, but doing that wasn't going to change anything. It was going to make it worse, and it did. What I needed to be doing with that exact same hour is I needed to be looking for a job. I needed to be exercising and taking care of my body. I needed to be calling friends and asking for moral support. I needed to be working on my resume. And intellectually, I knew that. But just like you, Nicole, I was choosing the thing that was the escape. And part of doing a mindset reset is recognizing the patterns that you are actively engaged in, like overeating and spending money that you don't have, that come from a default negative limiting belief that you aren't good enough. If you are good enough, what are you doing? You're not going to DSW. You're not reaching for the food that's making you huge. You're not buying things that you don't need. Because if you start to tell yourself that you're good enough, the second that you feel yourself driving to Walmart to buy stuff that you don't need for your husband and your kids, you can say, wait a minute. I'm good enough as the person that I am. I don't need to go to Walmart and buy things to prove that I'm not good enough for my kids and my husband. In fact, I'm going to do a U-turn and I'm going to go home and I'm going to go make cupcakes because I'm good enough. I don't need to buy anything to prove it. You see, it begins with your willingness to spot the limiting belief. And you did. You said, I feel inadequate. And now the way that you switch to feeling worthy is you not only interrupt the thought, I'm not good enough. You insert a new thought, which is, I am awesome and I am getting better every day. And then you start to substitute behaviors that align with you believing that you're good enough. So let me explain. I want you to go through your day, Nicole. And for those of you, how many of you feel like you're not worthy? How many of you feel and can admit, you have the courage to admit that you either engage in drinking, in drugs, in cheating, in shopping, in moving furniture around, in eating bad, whatever it may be, there's something that you're reaching for as a distraction. Another one, getting angry at people all the time. Like that you're the kind of person that gets triggered so easily that you get angry. It's always everybody else's fault. It's always everybody else's fault. Like that's another form of distraction, everyone, is when you constantly think other people are to blame. And so if this is how many of you can admit that? And if it's coming from a place of being unworthy, here's the coaching. You're going to have to submit, you're going to have to do the think this, not that exercise. And Danielle and Mandy, who are producing this with me, can you please tell me what day we covered that so that we can tell you what day video to go back and watch, how you think this right now, the limiting belief, I'm not worthy. And we want to substitute you to think that I am doing the best I can. I'm awesome at being a mom. I am worthy of my husband and my children's love just as I am. That's an example of the kind of thing you can substitute. Then here's what I want you to do, Nicole, and every one of you that has this issue, you engage in behaviors that prove that you don't think you're good enough. January 4th, was the live training on how you think this, not that. Okay. So just go to either melrobbins.com/mindset reset. You'll get a link to all of them, or go to our YouTube channel and look at the training from January 4th. Okay. So, I want you to make a list of all the things that you do when you feel unworthy. Okay. This is called if-then planning, and it is proven by science when you create an if-then plan. If I feel this, then I'm going to do that. You're 67% more likely to actually follow through on the plan if you have pre-made your plan. So Nicole, and every one of you that feels unworthy and you're doing stuff that you know is sabotaging your health, your success, your marriage, everything, I want you to go through your day and identify all the things that you do when you don't feel good enough. All the self-sabotaging behavior. Now I want you to create an if-then plan. If I feel myself reaching for the crappy food, then I'm going to do this instead. I'm going to walk out of the kitchen. I'm going to pop a piece of gum in my mouth. I'm going to say, I'm worthy. I don't need this scoop of ice cream. Then do that for all your triggers. And now it's going to be a mindset reset. Remember, it's a process, not an event. When you catch yourself driving to Walmart or DSW, whoa, 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 here I go. If I catch myself driving to DSW, then I'm going to turn the car around and I'm going to call a friend on my way back home. That's what I'm going to do. And you'll be shocked at how it works when you have a plan in place to interrupt the self-sabotaging behavior and insert something that's positive. Today is the last day of the year, and today is literally my most favorite day of my life. And here's why. Right now, have you ever considered that you are the oldest that you've ever been? You are the wisest that you've ever been. And that's because you're the most experienced you've ever been. You're the most broken that you've ever been. You're the most loved that you've ever been. And that means that right now you have an incredible opportunity in the palm of your hand. And it is the opportunity to make today the best day ever. And you have the opportunity to do that because you can choose how you're going to move your life forward. You see, life doesn't go backwards. Life goes forward. And the way that you drive your life forward is through the decisions that you make. It's through the people that you hang out with. It's how you spend your time. And you have complete control over those things, which means you have control over how your life can move forward. And that's an amazing thing. And so today, at least in the United States right now, I know some of you have already rung in the new year. It is the last day of the year. And it is my favorite holiday of the year because I love endings and beginnings. I think there's nothing more powerful than ending something except for the power of beginning something. And so you've got this incredible opportunity to say, thank you, 2018. Next, what are we going to create? And so if you are part of the program that we're running right now called Mindset Reset, you know what we're talking about. If you're bumping into this video either today or at some point in the future, this is very relevant to your life in this moment because today has a ton of power. This could be literally one of the most powerful days of your life because you could make a decision today that changes everything. And that is the power of making, that is I'm talking in circles. So I see so many things going on. I'm starting to get distracted. If you could see my point of view. And so that's one of the coolest things about life, about being a human being, is that if you're watching this video, I want you to consider something. You're better off than billions of other people. Let's just start with that fact right there. You have access to the internet. You have access to some form of technology that's allowing you to even view a video that I made. You have the brain power to process what I'm saying. And the fact that you have those three things means literally that you are better off than billions of other people that you're sharing this planet with. So let's start right there. The second thing is that since you can watch this, or you can read the captions in the closed captions, or you can listen to what I'm saying, it means that you have the ability to make decisions. It means you have the ability to process information, which means you have the ability to change the decisions that you are making, which will change the way that your life turns out. And so you have an opportunity today to do something that will make a huge difference for the rest of your life. Because, here's the other thing that's been very apparent to me this year. None of us are guaranteed to die of old age. There are many of you that are watching that will either lose a loved one in 2019, or you might even end your own life, not on purpose, but through an accident or through disease or through something tragic that happens. You are not guaranteed a long life. And that is why it is so important that you wake the heck up and you start to take the time that you have very, very seriously. That you stop hanging out with people that bring you down, that you stop thinking things that you were trained to think from your past that drag you down, that you stop looking at the world in a negative way and you start choosing the kind of mindset that you want to have that's going to help you be happier and more satisfied with this one life that you have. And so if I could implore you to do one thing today that will materially change the rest of your life, it is to make a decision to have a more positive mindset. It is to make a decision to get rid of the old stories that you have about yourself that limit what's possible, both in what you feel and in what you accomplish in your life. Let that sink in for a minute. None of us are guaranteed tomorrow. None of us are guaranteed next year. And you have the ability to make the most out of every day that you are given from this moment forward. And that's the gift of life, frankly, that you get to choose whether you want to suffer through it or whether or not you want to make the small changes to how you think and to who you hang out with and to what you're doing with your time so that you're actually happy. That's the opportunity of your life. And I am begging you to start by resetting your mindset, because you don't realize this yet, but you've got a ton of garbage that you're carrying from the past that is deeply and profoundly affecting your ability to move forward. You have stories about yourself that no longer serve you, but that you still serve up every single day in your life. You have opinions about what's possible based on things that have happened in the past that are no longer relevant or true. And if you continue to think negative things, it's going to dramatically impact the quality of your life, whether or not you enjoy it and whether or not you actually make your dreams come true. And that's where doing a mindset reset comes in. So the way that we're going to start this is you can't change anything until you fully acknowledge where you are. And where you are in this moment is you're the oldest you've ever been. You're the smartest you've ever been because you're the most experienced that you've ever been. You are probably the most broken in some ways because you've experienced a lot of hurt and pain and failures. You're the most powerful because you've experienced the most hurt, the most pain, and the most failure. And you're the most loved. Even if you've faced rejection, the people that are surrounding you love you deeply. And when you start from that place and you have the compassion and you have the wisdom to check in and really identify the lessons that you've learned in 2018, you can say, thank you, 2018, next. And you can start from a place that's really powerful. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for checking this video out. And if you like this one, I have a feeling you're going to like this one too. I'll see you there.